can't be free. Everybody wanna judge, say I'm a thug, I'm a player, I'm a simple, why I can't be me? When I walk up in the store, all the Karens get to staring at me. Put my heart in my music, it's still on my sleeve. Everybody been portrayed.
So fam, what's the word? It's your boy Spiritual Che, and it is now episode 79 of the Soulful Thoughts blog. And today, we're gonna be talking about life after death. Now, before we dive into it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If y'all wanna see y'all boy in the algorithm, let's dive into it. Now, what happens after death, right? Well, if y'all been watching the channel long enough, y'all know that life is nothing but what? It's 3 layers to life, right? Spirit, mind, and body. The spirit is the space that we live within. The space that we live within and that lives within us is what we call spirit. That's the overall spirit. Your own personal space is what we call a soul low spirit. And the birth of your soul low spirit is self-awareness. The self-awareness that you sparked, right? That's what gave life to your individual existence, right? So you have the spirit, mind, and then the mind bends in to create the body. Adrenaline creates blood flow. This is why when you get too mad, get too happy, get too horny, blood starts to flow, right? To the point where it'll come out your body in the form of tears, sexual fluids, or something like that, right? Or sweat. Adrenaline transforms into blood flow. The mind transforms into the body. Okay, so you got spirit, mind, and body. The body is a mind of itself, though, technically, ain't it? If the mind is what bends in to actually become the body, and we know that our body got actual instincts that we actually have to go against sometimes, right? Like, you might have certain fleshly desires to where you want to have sex all the time. But if you're in a relationship, you know you got to have those higher spiritual desires that, you know, stop you from doing that, right? Right. But the mind indeed has a mind of its own, though, right? And with this mind, the body has its own desires, right? Right. It's easy to get lost into these desires, ain't it? What are these desires? You know, food, sex, drugs, anything that soothes the flesh is what you could call a fleshly desire, right? Right. And like I say, it's easy to get lost in these desires, right? To get too rooted in these desires to where they like kind of like shape up how you see life. You get too lost into wanting sex, you can become a creep, right? Get lost into wanting drugs to soothe your body, you can become a junkie, right? Right. So, and during the process, you can get so lost in these energies that you lose your damn mind, right? You lose sense of yourself, right? Nobody was born, you know, a molester, a raper, or a junkie, or no shit like that, right? Throughout life, people get lost in these desires, right? So if you get lost in these desires throughout life, what makes you think that after death, your lostness would just disappear? If you lost in the flesh right now, you think you're not gonna be lost in the flesh after this shit over? Y'all ever heard of purgatory? Purgatory is a state of suffering, right? It's a state of suffering. I ain't look up the Google definition. I'm just giving my, not my guess, but I'm giving y'all what I know. But I ain't look at the Google definition. Purgatory is a state of suffering that can be very hard to get out, right? Right. A lot of the times we can be suffering and not know it. Because you can be having a good ass time taking that drug every day, right? But shit, if it's making you short on your bills or making you have financial problems, ain't you suffering? Or making you lose relationships, you basically suffering. Just having a good time in your suffering, right? Right. So I did some studying on life, and I feel like there's 3 states of purgatory that a spirit can get lost into. Now, in terms of passing on, I already spoke on that. You guys should go watch my atmosphere videos. I got 2 of them. Or you can watch my human purpose video. Matter of fact, watch the human purpose video, then come back to this one. Because in that, I explained to y'all that the purpose of a human is to, you know, develop our own atmosphere, right? Because humans are highly influenced to the point where we're borderline controlled by atmospheres, right? I mean, if you into astrology at all, you know that. You know the power of atmospheres. But even if you're not, no matter what atmosphere you grew up in, I'm pretty sure you see the power of it. Everybody in your area, I'm sure, has some type of blueprint of how they think. Whether it's the survivalistic mindset, materialistic mindset, whatever. There's some type of atmosphere over your neighborhood that is influencing the way everyone thinks. Right? Might be influencing the way you think, right? Right, so if atmospheres are what influences humans, then the whole point of this shit, well, it should be, is to, instead of being an influencee, become an influencer, right? Like, instead of being so much in the reactionary mind, because that's the reason why atmospheres control us, because the humanistic mind is a reactionary mind. You know, it's made to react and adapt. But as an atmosphere, you set the tone for the situation, right? You set the mood for the situation. You don't let the mood control you. As humans, it's so easy for the mood control us, right? Our moods damn near do control us, right? So in order for you to separate from this species, you have to tap into the space of not letting your moods control you, not letting other people's moods control you, and just create your own unbreakable, unmistakable vibe that can actually influence others. Whether it's causing them to be haters or causing them to admire you. Trust me, if you have your own vibe, it's gonna influence others in some type of way. And that's when you tapping into the atmospheric mind, right? So if you don't want to get lost in none of these purgatories that I'm gonna talk about in this video, the key is to detach from all lostness. Detach from the desires that help you cope with this life. Detach from the traumas that might be holding you back in this life. And detach from the perception that that's causing the way that you see life. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So, like I say, there's 3 layers of purgatory that a spirit can be lost in. Purgatory number 1. We're gonna start off with the lowest purgatory, the lowest hell you can possibly be in, which is the fleshly purgatory, right? If you lost in the flesh and in the physical, believe me, you will be lost in the flesh in the mental as well. Meaning, when you die, like I say, we're supposed to shed our minds and go create better minds after death. But if you're lost in your mind, there's no way you can shed it, right? So if you're so rooted within the mind and so rooted within the flesh, there will be no expansion after death. Your spirit and mind will still be lost in the flesh if that's where you were at. So, for example, if your whole life was centered around sex, or your whole life was centered around working for enough money to, you know, please your habits, and you were in a stagnation cycle, what's gonna happen is after you die, especially if it's, you know, not a traumatic death or anything like that, you die in a peaceful way, you're going to wake up in a dream state. A dream state that's gonna feel so real, it's gonna take a long ass time to get out of that dream state. It's just gonna be a cycle constantly repeating itself, because it's gonna feel like a day. It's gonna feel like you're still living your day-to-day life. Like however you died, you're gonna look at that as a dream. You're gonna wake up within the dream and start your day. Like if you start your day, you get up, brush your teeth, take a shower, then go roll a blunt. This might be what you actually doing after death. Like you will still be in your mind creating these circumstances, right? And it might sound crazy, but don't you have dreams every night? And don't you be forgetting that them motherfuckers dreams, them motherfuckers feel real, don't it? Don't ever underestimate the power of the mind. Don't ever underestimate the power of the mind. So if you so rooted into the cycle that you're in, your spirit will still be rooted in that cycle after you die. And you're going to continue living that daily cycle over and over and over until what happens? Well, how do you get out of a dream now? Something got to happen in that dream to make you realize it's a dream, don't it? Something got to happen that don't make sense, or something that's just too traumatic for your spirit to take, that it jumps you up. Something like that is going to happen within this purgatory dream state that you're going to be in order for your spirit to wake up. And when it does realize that it actually did die from the physical and that you've been in a dream state, it's going to put it in a certain panic, a certain uproar. You're going to share from that mind, yes, but you're going to immediately want to go create another mind, immediately go find some comfort. And what you're going to do is you're going to immediately fly into, because remember, thoughts and feelings come off as lights. They come off as little portals. Like that's how we see them as spirits when we're not in the body. Thoughts and feelings do have a look, but you just can't see them while in the body through these eyes, right? Without the body, you can see thoughts and feelings though. And like I say, they look like little lights, little portals. And you're going to fly into the first portal that seems familiar, that gives you comfort. That portal is going to end up being your mama, your brother, your auntie, your friend, whoever you were close to. You're going to fly into one of their chakras, fly into one of their minds, and eventually come out of them as their kid. Boom, you just reincarnated back into your family, back into your, whoever you were connected with in this life. All right, so that's purgatory number one. You can get lost in the flesh. Purgatory number two, it's easy to get lost in the material world, ain't it? There's a whole nother world that us as humans have created that only exists within the humanistic world, but it's nevertheless it's still in existence. It's called the material world, the matrix. Any car that you might be super attached to, right? Any house that you might be super attached to. You think you're not gonna be attached to these objects when you die? You think it's just that attachment just gonna, just magically disappear, right? Nah, hell no. If you worked your whole life, and look, there's nothing wrong with having desires, but if you worked your whole life centered around getting that house, and that house is kind of like the core of your essence, you care about that more than you care about your own damn kids. What's gonna happen is when you die, especially if you end up dying in that house, you feel me? Oh yeah, and I'm sorry to jump around, y'all, but another way you can get lost in the fleshly purgatory is being lost in trauma as well. I want to make sure I say that, because it's not just desires. You can be lost in a trauma, something that happened to you that maybe shaped up your whole world. Like if you were victimized as a child and you never really mastered the perception of creating better perceptions. You kind of stayed within that impulse reaction, and it created an attitude problem. It kind of created defense mechanisms that you keep up all the time, and you just live your life defending yourself from that moment. When you die, you're going to keep reliving that moment. I'm sorry to tell you that, but you gotta, that's why it's so important to develop spiritual strength, to be able to develop healthier angles of seeing things. You feel me? Because like I say, the mind is a very powerful thing. And if you spent your whole life lost into an impulse reaction, you will continue to be lost in that frequency until you rise above it. So when you die, your mind, your spirit and mind will still be lost in your body, creating visions of the experience that you were trying to avoid during life. And you won't come out of that, like I say, until something happens to make your spirit realize that it's in a dream state. But then, even after that, you just gonna go connect with somebody who's in that similar frequency, in that similar traumatic frequency, and you might end up reincarnating into a family that abuses you again. Just because that frequency is what you created your mind off of. You lost in an internal hell that you can't get out of. It might take lifetimes to get out that shit, right? Right. So the fleshly purgatory is by far the worst one to get lost into. Now, back to the material purgatory. Now, when you die and you were too connected to a house, a car, whatever the fuck it might be, your spirit and mind will be hovering inside or around said object. So this is where ghosts, you know, I'm pretty sure y'all heard of ghosts. This is why you might go into a new house and realize that there's a ghost in there. That's a person who either got too attached to that house, or they were just, you know, hiding away from the world in that house. You know, because of whatever happened to them, they might have been hiding from the world in that house, and now that spirit is still hiding from the world in that house. You feel me? They in the purgatory of in material possessions. That's kind of fucked up too. Now, the third purgatory that your spirit can get lost into is the worldly purgatory, right? This is the purgatory that we all are in, because it's simply getting lost into common belief, or, you know, common perception. Getting lost into the ways of how we see this world, the language, you know, how we operate with each other, the humanistic ways in general. When you get too lost into these ways and you never expand your mind to just to having a, you know, an awareness that you can expand into a greater perception of life. It's not that you got to know exactly what an atmosphere is and all this other shit. It helps, but you don't even got to have this knowledge. It's just being willing to detach from everything you know. You have to be willing to detach from everything you know in order to create something greater, right? So, you know, the people who run this world, they've given us pretty much every way to look at life, right? Like, you might look at this being right here, immediately think that it's a tree, but it can be whatever you want it to be, right? And you coming up, you having that perspective of just knowing that it can be whatever you want it to be, can be the very source of you creating your own vibe, your own aura. You feel me? And you creating your own vibe, your own aura, having that sense of not really giving a fuck what others think or feel, is gonna inspire others to get on that same type of time. You and that inspiration that you build, that body of inspiration that you add on to, is what's gonna be the space that your spirit used to create your next body, your atmospheric body, your mind. So literally, the influence you spread, the legacy you create, is what can form the space for your spirit to create its next body, its next mind, right? So the whole key to passing on, like I said earlier in the video, is being able to set the tone in a situation, set the mood in a situation, and not being so reactive to the moods within a situation, or not shaping yourself so much around the atmosphere of a situation, right? You want to make people shape themselves around your atmosphere. So first things first, if you truly want heaven after life, you must expand from the three hells that we all are trapped in. Hell, purgatory number one, you must expand from your fleshly desires. You must expand from your materialistic desires. And you must expand from the perception that was placed over us. Expand from the humanistic desires in general. And just be willing to detach. It's not saying you can't have desires, but just be willing. Always having your mind like, if it ever comes down to it, I'm willing to detach from everything. Just for being in that space, you will always expand to create a better mind. Whether it's an atmospheric mind, or if you just wanted to decide to come here, you'll be in a much greater mind in your next humanistic lifetime than you were in this lifetime. I hope all that makes sense, family. It's your boy Spiritual Trey signing out. Remember, you are not your mind. You are the spirit that's forming and creating your mind. So pay attention to how you're forming and creating your mind, because all of those desires you forming, all of those habits you forming, all of that shit, these materialistic desires that you getting attached to, all of these are portals that you can get lost in. Okay? And once you get lost, the only person that can find their way back is you. There's nobody that can help you. But yeah, it's your boy Spiritual Trey signing out. Love you, family.
On the beat, start preaching. Feel no evil, see no evil, but peep it. I don't aim for the stars, I want leeches. And the snake spawn, kill the whole species. Rest in peace to all the peaceful preaching. The youngest wildin', but they say they evil, that's kind of reaching. Who really controlling the way you thinking? Find the truth.